This year, in addition to the fact that Pesach is always complicated and always has lots and lots of interesting laws, customs, etc., there is also this year the additional interesting thing, and that is that Pesach begins on Sunday, which adds another whole layer of interest. I'm using the word interest. I don't like to use the word complication, but using the word interest. I want to, I'm sure you have lots of questions, and my purpose is to answer your questions. But I want to just start by saying that Pesach is a time of freedom. Pesach is a time of joy. Pesach is a great, wonderful holiday from which we take inspiration for the entire year. So while Pesach has a lot of details, and yes, a kosher Pesach is very important, and we need to clean our house from the chametz, and we need to prepare for the Seder, and do all the things that we have to do for Pesach. We have to keep our attitude in a positive way, and we have to be careful not to get caught up in the details that sometimes we forget about what the real meaning of Pesach is, and sometimes even get so stressed that when Pesach comes, we just sick of it. We can't get, and especially when we have children, it's very important that the children enjoy Pesach and learn to enjoy Pesach and grow up enjoying Pesach. So we have to get them involved in it in a very positive way. Having said that, I'm going to invite anyone who has any questions to open up with some questions. If not, I have lots to say, but if you have any questions, I'm looking forward to hearing your questions.
I think one of the things that I recall about the kids is, and certainly for myself as a child, that Pesach was always associated with a great deal of anxiety, performance anxiety. So there were pressures to learn something, and they do that. And I'm not sure how you relieve that from the kids, or if you should even.
Well, one of the things, of course, is to start early and to give them lots of time to learn it and to sing it with them and make this. That's a question of education and teaching, to make it exciting. It's like anything else. When kids have got to learn something, it's like someone asked my wife, how do you get your kid to wear yarmulke? My kid doesn't wear a yarmulke. So she said, what did you tell your kid about wearing a yarmulke? And she said, well, I said, you're soon going to be 3 years old. You're going to have to wear a yarmulke, whatever. And my wife said, well, that's not what I told my kid. I told my kid, you're going to get to wear a yarmulke. You're going to be a big boy. So it's all about, you're going to get to ask the 4 questions. You're going to stay up and you're going to get to ask the 4 questions. Or you need to know the 4 questions. It's a question of how you approach it, right? Like everything else. I think it's very important on how it's approached by the parents. Someone asked the question, why do we spill wine at the Seder? When we mention the 10 plagues, we spill a drop of wine for each of the 10 plagues, in addition to when we say there's 3 plagues and then 10 plagues and then the 3 acronyms for the plagues. And the idea is because it's according to Kabbalah. According to Kabbalah, the cup is Malchut, and I'm not going to go into all the details now, but the cup is Malchut, the wine is Bina, and Bina is from the side of Gevura, which could lead to negativity, and therefore you want to pour off any negativity from Malchut that may come to Malchut, which is the source of our life, to pour it off away so that we don't have any negativity that comes from the Gevura. Again, that's a Kabbalistic concept, and that's what we do. Some people use the finger to take the wine out. The Chabad custom is to pour a little bit. That wine, by the way, that is poured off needs to be discarded carefully. Some people are even careful not to put it in a regular sink. They throw it in the toilet sink, in a bathroom sink, or in a laundry room sink or something, because it's negativity. It has a negative connotation, so we get rid of it. We don't have it around. We don't want to have it around. That's the thing about the wine. Okay. Any other questions?
If you could repeat, please, what you said about Gevurah, Bina, and Malkut, how it plays in Passover.
Yeah, so Bina is the left, right? Like Gevurah. Gevurah comes from Bina. Bina is divides. So Bina has certain amount of Gevurah, and Gevurah itself is very holy and very positive, and Bina is very positive, but because it is limited and it has limitations, therefore it could cause anger and negativity. So and we want to make sure that in Malchut, which contains the wine, which is Bina, wine is Bina. The cup is Malchut. In order to not have Gevurah in Malchut, we pour off the wine. That is when we say the plagues, which was, of course, the plagues that were given to our enemies. They want to pour off any negativity should go to our enemies and not to us. Okay. So, yeah, go ahead, Kaylee, please.
Of the repetition of 4 in the Haggadah, the 4 questions, the 4 sons, the 4 cups, something about the 4 that keeps coming up again and again and again in the Haggadah.
Yes. Very good. The 4, of course, are related to the name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. The name of God has 4 letters. There are 4 worlds, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. And within each world, there is Chachma, and then there is Bina, and then there is 6 Midot, and then there's Malchut, which are related to the 4 letters of God's name. And that is the relationship of 4. This is the time when God revealed himself to the Jewish people, and God's name was revealed, and therefore the number 4 is very much revealed throughout the Haggadah. We also have the number 3, matzah, 3 matzot, and we have the number 3, Pesach, matzah, and maror, and the number 3 relates to Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet. Again, these are deep mystical concepts which I'm just touching on, not going into it too deeply. Perhaps on Tuesday night, when I go through the Haggadah a little more in depth, I'll go into it more deep. Sunday night. When I go through Haggadah a little more in depth, I'll go through these concepts a little deeper. And by the way, there's a 5th. The Rebbe said, like, there's 4 sons, right? The wise son, the simple son, the wicked son, the simple son, and the one who doesn't know how to ask questions. And there's a 5th son, the one who didn't show up at the Seder table. These 4 at least showed up. There is the idea of 4, the 4 plagues, and then there's a 5th plague. Each plague is divided into 4, and then 5. And we find the 5 represents the Yud. We said this, the 4 letters of God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Above the Yud, every Yud on top of it has a little coat, it's called, a little stick that sticks up, and that represents Keter, the crown that is above Chachma, above the creation of the world, and that's represented in the 5th. So you have 4, which is 5. I want to try and stay today on more practical issues than going. I mean, we can talk about mystical, but I don't want to go too deep into the mystical because I want to also want to have time to talk about the practical issues that we're dealing with. Yes, for Kaylee.
Yeah. So when we say that Hashem revealed himself, when Hashem revealed himself to the Jewish people, are we talking about the pillar and the cloud? Are we talking about Matan Torah? Are we talking about? I mean, Hashem revealed himself to Moshe.
On the night of Pesach in Egypt, it says in the Haggadah, "Va'avarti be'eretz Mitzrayim." Hashem says, "I will go through the land of Egypt, v'hiketi, and I will kill all the firstborns, and I will do wonders among the Egyptians, and I will redeem you." And it says in the Haggadah, "Ani v'lo malach," Hashem himself, not an angel, not a saraf, not a shaliach, not a messenger, but Hashem himself. That night, in the middle of the night, God himself, the Shekhinah, the presence of God itself, was revealed in the land of Egypt. The Jewish people were in the land of Egypt, which was a place of darkness, a place of exile. They themselves were not exactly very righteous. They were in many ways living the Egyptian life. They did remain distinct in 3 areas. They kept their language, they kept their clothing, and they kept their names. And in that way, they remained distinct. And that was how they were able to be redeemed, because even though they were living in Egypt, they remained a separate nation in Egypt. Clothing, of course, means that they dressed modestly, and their names were the Hebrew names, and the language was Hebrew. And this way they kept their identity, but they didn't have a lot of merits, a lot of spiritual merits with which to be redeemed from this place of Egypt. And remember that in those days, there was no such thing as a slave going free. You know, today in India, I believe there are castes. You know, you're either from this caste or that caste. In those days, if you were a part of the slave caste, you were never, that was it. You grew up, you were born a slave, you died a slave. So the idea of freedom had never happened before. Now Hashem is going to take us out of this Egypt. And we were idol worshippers, many of us, take us out of Egypt and make us free. This is a new concept. The people were not worthy. So when you talk about, again, going to the mystical, when you talk about the way the world is set up, the way that God created the world, the light of God shines where there's holiness. Where there's unholiness, there's darkness. God's light is not revealed. So in general, if we do a mitzvah, we connect to God, this brings God's light to respond to us. That's the way the world is set up. That holiness goes where there is holiness. Light of God goes where there's holiness. Where there's impurity, there's darkness. God's light is not revealed. So the way the world works, there was no way for God's light to be revealed in Egypt, in that place of darkness, in that place of impurity, the place of immodesty, etc. So the only way it could happen was that Hashem himself cut through all of creation. God himself is above creation. God created the world. He created creation. So the light of God that is beyond any limits is that God himself revealed himself in the land of Egypt. And that's what happened at midnight, in the land of Egypt.
Also,
Okay.
that's the name, the Hebrew name Mitzrayim means a place of narrow.
Means love, limits, narrow and limits, Mitzarim, right?
Right, right.
I just want to say, I can't see everybody on the screen. So if you have a question, you may want to raise your hand electronically or just speak up. Unmute yourself and speak up and I'll hear you.
Those
Okay.
are voices from the darkness.
All right, let's talk a little bit. Again, I'm hesitating because if you have questions, you can ask questions, by the way, on Facebook. You can ask questions on the chat. And if you ask questions in the comments on Facebook, then they'll be transferred to the chat and I'll see them on the chat. Any questions you have about any aspect of Pesach, please. Let me start talking a little bit about the differences this year than in regular years. So on Erev Pesach, the day before Pesach, there are certain things that we do on the Erev Pesach. Some of the things that are the same this year and some of the things that are different this year. So, for example, on Erev Pesach, the day before Pesach, firstborn men need to fast or to listen to the conclusion of a tractate of the Talmud. We don't generally fast. We generally listen to a tractate. We go to a siyum, it's called, to listen to the conclusion of a tractate of the Talmud. Because of the COVID concerns, so this year it's okay to do it, to listen to it on Zoom. Even though we can't have Shabbat services and blowing a shofar and things like that do not work, listening to the Megillah do not work on Zoom. But the listening to a tractate you can do on Zoom. Now, last year everybody was on Zoom. This year a lot of people will be doing it outdoors as a group, but also we'll broadcast it on Zoom. So usually this is done on the day before Pesach, but on Shabbat we don't fast. So that we can't fast on the day before Pesach. In addition to that, we push the fast back, but we don't establish a fast on Friday, except for the 10th of Tevet, which we do fast on Friday. Otherwise, we never establish a fast on Friday, so you shouldn't go into Shabbat fasting. So therefore, the fast is pushed back to Thursday. So on Thursday is the time when male firstborns need to listen to a siyum. And that is because the Egyptian firstborns were killed and the Jewish firstborns were spared, and therefore it's a custom for them to fast. And this is an obligation. Now, the only thing is that's different this year, besides the fact that it's pushed back to Thursday, because it's not on Erev Pesach, because it's pushed back a couple of days, if someone cannot make a siyum, cannot get to a siyum and is not able to fast, then they can give tzedakah, the amount of food they would eat that day, they can give to tzedakah if they can't fast, and that is to poda, to kind of redeem the fast. So that's one thing that's different, that we fast on Thursday instead of fasting on Erev Pesach. Another thing that's different on Friday is many things we do that we usually do on Erev Pesach, we do on Friday. So let's step back for a moment. Usually the night before Pesach, that means the night before the Seder night, we do bedikat chametz, we check our house for chametz. What does that mean? So first of all, the house needs to be clean. We want to make sure we get rid of all the chametz. But it's a mitzvah, an obligation for each of us to check our house for chametz on the night before Pesach. Why at night? Because at night, everybody's home. And also at night, the candle works better. You're supposed to do it at night. So that night, as soon as you get home, as soon as night falls, about 25, 30 minutes after sunset, we have an obligation to check the house for chametz. We don't destroy the chametz then until the next day, because we can still eat chametz the next morning. So what we do is we destroy the chametz the next day, but we want to make sure that we have chametz to destroy. And if we've done a good job, we've cleaned up the house, we're not going to find any chametz. The hope is that by the time you're checking for chametz, the house has been cleaned already. You're not going to find the chametz. So therefore, it's customary to carefully wrap 10 pieces of chametz. You have to make sure the chametz is hard chametz. It's not going to fall crumbs and kind of defeat the purpose and fall all over the house. Some people like to use actually noodles, dry noodles, which is not a bad idea. You wrap them up in tissues or something, or a piece of bread or a cookie, and 10 pieces around the house. And then when you go and search for the chametz, we take a candle, and by the light of the candle, even if we have electric lights, we still need to use a candle to check the corners and any holes and cracks anywhere, check the drawers, check everywhere, and check the whole house for chametz. And then we take the 10 pieces. We use a feather if we have to clean up any chametz. Take the 10 pieces, put them in a bag, put a wooden spoon in the bag, tie it up, hang it up somewhere. So it's hanging, a custom of Chabad is to hang it so no rodents or no rodents or animals can get to it. Thank God we don't have rodents in our house. But still, you never know, whatever, it's customary to hang it up. And then the next day, usually on the day before Pesach, at 5 hours in the day, we burn the chametz. So usually the way it works is, so the night before we check the chametz, we say a blessing, al biur chametz, for burning the chametz. We set the chametz aside. All the chametz we're going to eat the next day, we have in one place to make sure it doesn't go all over the house. The next morning we get up, we eat chametz early, before 4 hours into the day, a third of the day. And then we finish eating the chametz, and then we burn our chametz. However, this time, we're going to continue eating chametz. We can eat chametz all the way through the day. So even though we're eating chametz, you would think that we could burn the chametz in the evening before Shabbos. Nevertheless, the custom is always to do it the same, to always burn the chametz at the same time. It's about 11:15 now in the morning on Friday. So even the Friday, technically, we could burn the chametz all day. We burn the chametz by the proper time, which is about 11:15 until 11:30 or so. You have that amount of time, a little bit later even. Why do we do it on Friday morning? Why can't we do it on Friday evening? Because if somebody sees, let's say somebody's learning about it, and they see you burning the chametz in the afternoon, they'll think next year they can do the same. And on Erev Pesach, we can't do that. We have to burn it in the morning before the time of the prohibition of chametz, which is in the middle of the day. And therefore, we burn the chametz before 5 hours into the day, even on Friday, even though we can continue eating chametz throughout the day. Now, there is one difference though, and that is that after we check the house for chametz, there's a little prayer that we say, a statement that we say, which is called chamira v'chamia, any chametz which I have not found, any chametz which I have not seen and I don't know about, I am nullifying it. I want to have nothing to do with it. Why do we do that? Because when we check the house, in case we didn't find some chametz somewhere, but there is a piece of chametz that we didn't find, we don't want to have ownership of it. So we're saying I'm nullifying it. It's not mine anymore. Anybody can take it, and that way we don't own it. But that's only for the chametz we didn't find, we don't know about, but we still have chametz set aside for the next day. So usually on Erev Pesach, after we burn the chametz, we say another statement, Kol Chamira again, but this statement says any chametz that I don't know about, that I do know about, that I've seen or I haven't seen, I'm nullifying it all. That second statement we don't say until the next day on Shabbat, because we still have chametz, we're still eating chametz. So you can't say I'm nullifying all my chametz, because I'm keeping my chametz to eat. So that statement needs to be said on Shabbat. And now we're going to move to how we deal with chametz and Pesach and Shabbat and all of that. I'm going to stop. Does anyone have any questions? By the way, this statement is in Aramaic. The reason it's in Aramaic is because in the times of the Talmud, the people spoke Aramaic and many people didn't understand it. And when you're saying I'm nullifying the chametz, you have to mean it. You have to know what you're saying. The main thing is to nullify the chametz in your mind and your heart. And the statement is just to say it. But if you're saying something and don't know what you're saying, it means meaningless. And therefore, it was written in Aramaic. Nowadays, if people do not understand the Aramaic, even though technically if they know what they're saying, it's okay. But it's preferable to say it in English if you don't know Aramaic. If you know Spanish or not English, say it in Spanish. Any language, better to say in the language that you know. So most people, if they don't know the Aramaic, would say the Aramaic and then repeat it in English. But it should definitely be said in the language that we understand to make the statement, I'm nullifying it. Okay, so any questions, any other questions before I go on to talk a little bit about the system of how we're going to deal with chametz and Pesach and Shabbat and Friday? It's very complicated.
Okay, so what is the time frame here? I got a little confused as to what day was what.
Very good. Very good. Okay, so ordinarily, let's say it was Pesach was on Tuesday. So night you check for the chametz. Monday morning you eat chametz until, let's say, 11, 4 hours, daylight savings time. Then you burn the chametz between 11 and 12. And then you have no more chametz. It's Pesach day. Because beginning with midday, you have to get rid of, you're not allowed to have any chametz anymore. Any chametz that you're keeping, you have sold to a non-Jew and locked away or put away in a cabinet, closed away in a cabinet or in a room somewhere. Any chametz you're keeping, you've sold. Chametz you're eating, you're not eating anymore because it's Pesach, finished. Even though it's not Yom Tov yet till the nightfall, but beginning from, let's say, 12 o'clock in savings time, you've gotten rid of all your chametz. Burned it, gotten rid of it. But this year it's Friday. So, and it's not Erev Shabbat, Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach is on Shabbat. So you're allowed to eat chametz all day. So the eating of chametz can continue, but the burning of chametz has to be between 11 and 12. We burn the chametz. So on Thursday night, we check the house for chametz. By the way, we have in the office in the Judaica, Kodesh Judaica sells B'dikas chametz kits. You can get a candle and a wooden spoon and a feather, and you use that for checking for the chametz. And the candle is to see in all the corners. You don't have to turn off the lights, by the way. You can keep the lights on, and it's also not a mitzvah to burn the house down. So you have to be careful how you use the candle. And you may want to put foil underneath the candle, so it's also not a mitzvah to drip wax all over the place. And then if you need to clear up some crumbs, you can use the feather. It's a very, very good brush. And then you carry a paper bag with you and throw the chametz into it. And then, as I said, the wooden spoon you put in the thing, because in order for it to burn properly, put in the bag, and you're going to burn it tomorrow. So this year, Thursday night, we do the checking of the chametz. And by that point, the house should really be cleaned for Pesach. Now on Friday, we're going to eat chametz all day, but we already checked the house for chametz. So what do we do? So if the beauty of California is the weather is hopefully going to be really nice. So ideally, any chametz that's being eaten should be eaten outdoors. If you cannot eat the chametz outdoors, then what you want to do is have a designated place in the house, either a room that you're going to close. Let's say you have a closet or something, or a room, you're going to close up all your chametz for Passover, you can do it there. Or one area of the room where you have either a paper tablecloth on it or something, and also when you eat the chametz, you eat it into a napkin, because then you can, not a napkin, a tissue, because then you can flush the tissue down the toilet and you can get rid of it. Or, so the all-day Friday, you want to, any chametz you want to eat, you want to keep separate from everything else in the house, because the whole house should be Pesach by this time. The most comfortable way to prepare for Pesach this year is to prepare all the Shabbat meals kosher for Pesach. Even though on Friday night and Shabbat morning you can eat chametz. But if you're going to eat chametz, what are you going to do? You're eating on non-Pesach dishes. When are you going to put the Pesach dishes away? It's Shabbat. It's a mess. When are you going to cook for Shabbat? For Pesach, it's a mess. So the best thing to do is to make the house Pesach beforehand, cook everything for Shabbat in Pesach dishes. However, it's still a mitzvah to eat chametz on Friday night and Shabbat morning. So therefore, you're going to have some challah. And the challah that you have is going to be stored in a place where it's separate from everything else. You're going to go to a place which is separate from where you're eating your Pesach. And there you're gonna make kiddush, you're going to go eat your challah, you're going to wash your hands, eat the challah. Now, if it's a place where you can see from your dining room where you're eating the rest of your meal, then no problem. You make kiddush if you want at the table. Go out to this place where you're eating the chametz, wash your hands, eat the challah. Have in mind when you're washing that you're going to continue, and then you come back and sit down at the table and eat your meal. You rinse your mouth very, very well. Make sure there's no chametz in your teeth. And then you sit down, or on your clothes, sit down and have a Pesach meal, and then you can bench. That's the ideal to do that Friday night and Saturday. Now, any chametz that's left has to be destroyed or sold. So any little bits of chametz that are left, ideally you have them in you've been eating in a tissue, and you throw them, in a tissue, and you throw them down the toilet. If you have a tablecloth with paper tablecloth or something with crumbs on them, so there are two ways you can deal with it. You can't, on Shabbat, you're not allowed to kind of spread them in the wind. What you can do is gather them together and throw them into the toilet. You can put bleach on it. And Kaylee, this is the question you had. When you put bleach on it, it's no longer edible for an animal. And therefore it's not a problem having chametz, which is covered with bleach, that an animal cannot eat.
But what do you do about it's Shabbos? You can do this all on Shabbos?
You can put bleach on the thing on Shabbos.
You're pouring.
Or you can take the whole tablecloth, wrap it up with a chametz in it, and put it away with your chametz. And this is an interesting thing that I want to step back and say. Usually the rabbi, and by the way, if this is complicated, so if you want me to clarify, stop me and tell me to clarify. The rabbi sells the chametz usually at 11:30, let's say, at the time when we burn the chametz, sells it to a non-Jew. This year, you can't really sell the chametz to a non-Jew because we're still eating it that afternoon. Nevertheless, the rabbis still sell it at the same time, again, to make everything the same. So on Friday by 11, the rabbi sells the chametz. But there's a clause in the contract that says the following. All of the chametz is going to become yours at sunset on Shabbat. Until sunset, it's still ours. At sunset Shabbat, it becomes yours, except for the chametz that we're going to eat. This is, by the way, if you sell it through us. I can't guarantee for every rabbi. Some rabbis do it this way, some don't. We do it this way. So we say to the non-Jew, you're buying the chametz effective sunset, except for the chametz we're going to eat. Any chametz we're going to eat, we're keeping, we're not selling to you. So now, you finish eating on Shabbat morning. It's before 11, you stop eating. You got some crumbs left. So again, either you can throw them in the toilet, that's destroying them, same as burning them, or you can wrap the whole thing up, put it away with your chametz, and that is being sold because the non-Jew is acquiring whatever you're not eating. So he's acquired it, so it's his. So it's not a problem to put it away with your chametz. That's an easy.
Wait, Rabbi, can you just wait? You can either flush it,
Or you can
either
put bleach
flush
on
it,
it.
or
You can put bleach on it.
you're taking the tablecloth off the table. But the tablecloth doesn't have the chametz. You have
No,
to
no,
eat the chametz.
the tablecloth, let's say that you ate, if you ate at a table outside, or you had a tablecloth on the floor or a cloth on the floor where your crumbs went, you take all the crumbs, it wrapped up in whatever it is they're on a table.
Outside, not in the house, outside.
If you have an outside, if you can do it outside, if you can't do it outside, you do it inside in a corner of the house, somewhere away from the Pesach table. And you take all the crumbs and put them away in your closet together with your chametz stuff that you're locking up for Pesach. And this all has to be done before 12 o'clock on Shabbat. You have to finish eating by 11. Services are held on Shabbat morning very early. This is next Shabbat, not this Shabbat. Very early so that we can have time to eat the chametz, because it is a mitzvah to eat actual chametz on the day before Pesach. And therefore, you can't say, well, I'm just not going to eat chametz. I'm just going to eat fruits and vegetables. Technically, for Kiddush, if you drink a second cup of wine, that's another whole thing, but it's better to eat chametz, so therefore that's the way we do it.
Rabbi,
So, one more time, just to clarify. Thursday evening, we check for chametz after dark. Friday morning, about 11:30, we burn the chametz. 11:30, we burn the chametz. Friday evening, throughout the day after that, we make sure to keep the chametz separate from anything else in the house. And don't let it get around crumbs or anything in the house. If you have kids, try not to give them chametz to eat. If they do eat chametz, make sure they're eating in one place. You're watching them, and then clear off their crumbs before they go anywhere around the house. Friday night, you're eating your challah separate from everything else. And then you're eating a Pesach meal. Shabbat morning, before 11, you're finishing your chametz. You're eating, making kiddush, you're washing, you're having some challah. Finishing eating chametz by 11, then you are going to wrap up your chametz, either throw the crumbs that are left into the toilet, or wrap them all up, put them away with your chametz before 12 o'clock. And then it's very important to remember to say the kol chamira, the statement that we have to say on Shabbat. Usually we do it while we're burning the chametz. This time we're not burning chametz, but we are getting rid of the leftover chametz. So it's important to remember at that time to make the statement, any chametz that I have, whether I know it or I don't know it, it's in the Siddur, it's in the Haggadah, whether I know it or I don't know it, I have nothing to do with it. It's hefker, it belongs to anybody who wants it.
I have a question. Instead of burning the chametz, you can't put the chametz and sell it to the non-Jew?
It is a mitzvah to burn. It's a mitzvah to burn chametz. So yes, you can sell most of your chametz to a non-Jew, but some chametz you should burn. And the 10 pieces of chametz that we find when we are checking the house for chametz should be burned. It is a mitzvah to actually burn. Now, you can burn it in a barbecue. You have a barbecue, you turn on the barbecue and put the bread on top of it and it'll burn it up. That's what I do every year.
Okay.
Someone asked, is it necessary to have a separate toothbrush for Pesach? And the answer is yes, because obviously you're using your toothbrush with chametz all year. So therefore, when you on Pesach, you don't have anything that's touched chametz, so you need a separate toothbrush for Pesach. We always break out new toothbrushes for Pesach. And then continue using them through the year, and then you get new ones every year. I mean, you change it more often than that probably, but always.
So you need paste in the new mouthwash, right?
What was that? What was that?
Mouthwash then also, right?
You can use Pesach. You have to make sure it's kosher for Pesach.
And then also mouthwash you have to get kosher too, right?
Yeah, kosher for Pesach, right? Yeah. Kaylee, you had a question? Yes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand. And I also have a question about, is this the same East Coast or West Coast? Does it make any difference? Do I need to ask a different Rav here? I understand. Shabbos morning before 11, you finish eating the chametz.
The timing is different in different places.
So I need to ask a Rav here.
To find out there what the time is. I'm sure it'll be published there, but yeah.
Right. Okay. But Shabbos morning, so you're eating, you're finishing eating by 11, but you're wrapping up the chametz by 12.
That's correct.
So in other words, you can.
In other words, you have another hour after you finish eating. You're supposed to finish an hour earlier, and then you get rid of it. You have another hour to get rid of it after you have stopped eating the chametz.
Why not just get rid of it and then just continue eating your Pesach meal and then bench? Can you bench? Wait, are you?
Too many questions at once. Let's go one at a time. I'll answer all the questions. Let's take them one at a time. You can either bench right after the challah, the chametz, if you want. And then when you eat your Pesach meal, you make a bracha on everything you're eating. That's fine. I mean, your Shabbos meal, which is Pesach, you can make a bracha on everything. Or when you wash, if you can see the area where you're eating, where you're eating the Pesach stuff, so you can wash, get rid of the chametz, and then continue a leisurely meal and bench at the end. You can do either way. But you have to get rid of the chametz by midday.
But you don't have to finish the meal. If the meal is cooked in Pesach and it's a Pesach, everything is Pesach stick, as long as you got rid of the chametz tablecloth outside, you can continue eating. That's not a problem.
Yes, if you have in mind at the beginning, you can continue eating in another room, in another place.
You can bench on the chametz that you ate. You can bench on that.
That's correct. And you continue your meal and you bench. If you had in mind when you washed that you're going to go to that other place to eat.
Right.
Yeah. Otherwise, you should bench outside and then go inside, say the blessing after the meal, and then go inside and continue eating, but make a bracha on the food that you're eating at the Pesach table.
So on Shabbat, we don't burn chametz. We do it the day before.
Correct. You do it the day before. But instead of burning whatever's left, little crumbs, you throw it in the toilet. Right. It's ideal that when you plan your Shabbat meals, that you plan just enough challah to have enough to eat. You have small rolls maybe, so you have enough to eat, and whatever's left, if you
got it.
Yeah, because otherwise you can stuff up your toilet if you.
Rabbi, is it a mitzvah to leave food over for Shabbat to be destroyed, or if it's nothing left, that's fine?
Well, it's a mitzvah to eat chametz on Shabbat, to eat bread on Shabbat. Some people have a custom to eat matzah ashira, like egg matzah, which is kosher lePesach. Chabad doesn't do that. In Chabad, we do not eat matzah ashira. So,
no, my question is about when you eat chametz, and is it the mitzvah to leave crumbs over to destroy when you're saying the kol chamira, or if you don't have any crumbs left over to destroy on Shabbat, that's fine too.
It's fine too, because remember you're burning, you're doing the mitzvah of burning the day before, and by the way, you're also fulfilling the mitzvah of destroying chametz by eating it. Although the mitzvah to destroy is like at 11, but it's okay. If you eat it all up and you have nothing left, it's not a problem. Usually it's going to be a couple of crumbs you can throw out, but it's not a problem. It's not a problem. Someone asked the question, if I'm leaving for Passover, do I still have to clean the house for Pesach? That is a very interesting question. So if you're leaving the house for Pesach, and you're leaving for the whole Pesach, then you can have chametz in your house. You can sell everything in the house to a non-Jew to the non-Jew for Pesach. It's not a problem. There's only one thing, and that is there is an obligation of our sages to check for chametz on the night before Pesach. So you can fulfill that mitzvah in one of two ways. If you are going to get where you're going before the nightfall of Thursday night, then where you are going, so it depends. If you are an owner of the room or a renter of the room, like if you're staying in a hotel room, then on Thursday night, you take 10 pieces of bread or chametz, put them around the hotel room, check the room for chametz, not a problem. If you're staying in someone else's house, the thing is you don't have an obligation to check someone else's house. You can help them, but you don't fulfill your obligation. So there you have a choice though. You can rent the room that you're staying in, let's say for $1, and then you rent the room and now you're a renter, and then you put 10 pieces of chametz in your room and you check your room for chametz. Let's say, however, you're not sure where you're going to be Thursday evening, or let's say you're traveling on Thursday and you're going to get there late Thursday night, and you're not going to be able to do checking of chametz on Thursday night. then it's a mitzvah, an obligation actually, to check at least one room in your house the night before you leave by candlelight without a blessing. So Thursday night, if you check, you make a blessing. If let's say you're leaving on Thursday, so on Wednesday night before you leave, make sure one of your rooms is clean and check it. Now the question is, should you leave 10 pieces of bread in the room? And then what do you do with the 10 pieces of bread? So here is an interesting idea. If you know for sure you're going to burn the bread on Friday, you take it with you where you're going and you burn it there. But if you're not sure you're going to be able to burn it there, or let's say you're afraid you might forget, the way rabbis have gotten questions. People traveled, they checked the room, their one room in the house before they left, put the 10 pieces of bread in their suitcase, and Pesach, in the middle of Pesach, they open the suitcase and, oh my goodness, I forgot to burn the chametz, and the chametz is right there. That means they've owned the chametz through Pesach, which is a prohibition, which is a serious prohibition. So if you think you might forget, if you're a forgetful type, or if you're not sure where you'll be and be able to burn it on Friday, not a good idea to burn it in a hotel room. So then it's okay if you don't leave 10 pieces of bread, because the leaving of 10 pieces of bread is a custom, which is ideal, but if you don't do it, you still fulfill a mitzvah of checking for chametz, and you don't have to leave the 10 pieces of bread. I hope I answered that question okay.
Rabbi,
Yes.
why can't, when we're destroying chametz, why can't you just like shake the crumbs out onto your, like into a courtyard or a backyard or something? Why do you have to destroy it with like bleach or flushing it down the toilet?
Because it might still be that you don't know. If you have birds, for sure. First of all, you're not allowed to feed strange birds. If you put it there, also, if you put it there initially, see, there's a whole question. If you have food outdoors, chametz outdoors, do you have to check for it? Do you have to? You don't have to check the outdoors for chametz because we assume the birds will eat it. But nevertheless, or animals will eat it. But nevertheless, when time for chametz comes, you have to check and make sure it's ideal. You don't have to, but it's ideal to check and see if there's any real chametz, you have to take it away. And to put chametz there initially outdoors, where it might not get eaten, you're not allowed to do that. So therefore, to just leave it outside, unless you have chickens. If you have chickens and the chickens are going to eat it, then it's not a problem. You make sure, put it out there and watch and make sure the chickens eat it. That's okay. But you're not allowed to feed strange birds and to put it out there, and also you're not allowed to shake it out in a way that the wind blows it on Shabbat. So therefore, it's not good to just throw it out onto the lawn.
Okay, thank you. And another question, if I can ask one more question. So we usually go for our Shabbat meal somewhere else. So in our case, if we clean the house on Thursday night and then on Friday we're burning those 10 pieces, can we say our nullification of chametz then? Because we're not going to eat chametz in our house. We're not going to eat anything in our house on Shabbat.
No, because you're still going to eat chametz. So if you nullify, what are you eating? In other words, you still have in mind Friday night, Saturday, Shabbos morning. You still have in mind to eat chametz. You're not really nullifying the chametz means I have nothing to do with chametz anymore. Any chametz I know of, or I've come across, or I will come across, I have nothing to do with it. It's like earth. You can't say that when you're planning to eat chametz. So
even though we're only planning to eat chametz that's in somebody else's house as guests, it's not something we own. We still can't say the nullification until that time at 11 or 12 on Shabbat day, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if you live with your kids, who says kol chamira? Kol chamira, the statement of annulling chametz, everybody says. Everybody says that, and whether you're living with someone else or you're doing it yourself, because any chametz you might have in your pockets or somewhere, you want to nullify. Why the wooden spoon for checking? And the answer to that is it's a custom. You don't need to use the wooden spoon for checking. We use the wooden spoon to burn it. So I guess you could technically use other pieces of wood, but it's customary to use a wooden spoon. Some people used to use the wooden spoon to shovel the chametz into, but you can do that. But the main purpose of the wooden spoon is to burn it with the chametz so it burns well. Wouldn't a flashlight be more efficient than a candle? Technically, you can use a flashlight. However, there is a verse in our prophets that says, I will search Jerusalem with candles. And based on that, our sages said that the best light to search with is a candle. The candle has a unique kind of light. If you use let's say a flame, let's say a Havdalah candle, you can't use a Havdalah candle to check, or more than one wick, because it doesn't light up the corners as well as a single candle. And therefore the sages have always said we need to use a single candle. Now a flashlight does do the job, and some people say it's okay to use a flashlight, but it's not, there's the tradition of using a candle, so we use a candle still to follow the tradition. If you're checking your car at night, then you can definitely use a flashlight and not a candle. By the way, there is an interesting thing that the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneir Zalman, the founder of Chabad, wrote our version of the Shulchan Aruch, of the Code of Jewish Law that we follow, writes an interesting thing. If you have a lot of rooms to check, and it's going to be too much work to do on the night before Pesach, on the night of checking for chametz, and many of us, especially as you get older, you have a lot of rooms, it's okay to check before. You can check the rooms before by candlelight, a night before, 2 nights before, 3 nights before. Just make sure you're never going to, just absolutely sure you don't bring chametz into those rooms once you've checked them. However, on the night before Pesach, there's an obligation to check at least one room. So for example, if you want to check, let's say you're cleaning out your refrigerators. You don't want to have to open your refrigerator on the night before Pesach and take everything out and check it. So when you clean out your refrigerator for Pesach, check it out, maybe take a candle or a flashlight, make sure there's no chametz left in it, and you've done it. Don't put any more chametz in the refrigerator. Your car, you can check it the day before. Now the car, because it's outdoors, you don't need a candlelight. If it's in the daytime, you can do it in the daytime by the light of the day. So you can check your car during the day. You don't have to wait till night when all your neighbors are wondering what you're doing around with a candle in your car. You can check the car during the daytime, a day before, etc. The day before. You're not supposed to wait till the day after, the day before. And you can do many rooms if you want before. Just make sure you leave one room for the night of the B'dikas Chametz, and that's when you put the 10 pieces of chametz out, and that's when that's the chametz that you burn. Any other questions? Should we talk a little bit about the holiday itself, observances of the holiday? One of the things about being on Shabbat, we're not allowed to prepare on Shabbat for after Shabbat. And therefore, we're not allowed to cook, set the table, make salad, do anything for the Seder on Shabbat, even though it's late. The 4 cups of wine, and it's a bummer that they moved daylight savings back several years ago. So by the time Pesach comes, it's daylight savings time, and it's really a problem. But you cannot fulfill the mitzvah of the 4 cups until after nightfall, 30 to 35 minutes after sunset. And therefore, it's a bummer because you can't also prepare anything. You can't prepare anything until the night. But that's how it is. So you can't do anything now. However, the salt water, cooking the eggs, preparing the chicken necks for the Seder plate, and all the other stuff the horseradish you should definitely grind beforehand, the charoset you should make beforehand, prepare everything you can prepare in advance. And then when Shabbat ends, you quickly take everything and put it out because it's all ready. That's the ideal way to do it. If you have a non-Jewish assistant, a non-Jewish person helping you, the non-Jewish person may not cook for you on Shabbat, may not do anything we're not allowed to do. The one thing that a non-Jew is allowed to do is set the table. That they're allowed to do. But other things, food preparation and stuff, they shouldn't do until after Shabbat. Why is Passover on the 15th and not on the 14th? So the answer to that is because the holiday of Passover commemorates the time when we left Egypt. We left Egypt on the 15th. The 14th of Passover was the time when we offered the Pesach sacrifice during the daytime, slaughtered the lamb. That was done on the 14th in preparation for eating it on the night, which is already the 15th. So the actual eating of the Karban Pesach and the leaving of Egypt was on the 15th, and that's why we celebrate Passover on the 15th of Nisan not on the 14th of Nisan, which is the day before when they were preparing and in Israel, of course, in the times of the temple, they used to offer the Pesach sacrifice, the lamb, or the sheep, or the goat, on Erev Pesach, and on the 14th, and then on the 15th is when they would eat it at night. They would roast it on the 14th and eat it. It's interesting that if we were in Israel, and if there was a holy temple, then this Shabbat, we would have an interesting thing. Never mind setting the table and preparing for the Seder after Shabbat. They would stay on the Temple Mount. Everybody would stay on the Temple Mount until nightfall, after they offered the sacrifice in the temple. And after nightfall, they would go home and roast the lamb and start the Seder after they finished roasting the lamb. You can imagine they probably started late at night. And the Seder, Pesach lamb had to be eaten before midnight. So it was a rushed night. They would rush home or wherever they were staying in Jerusalem, roast the lamb, and then eat it quickly and eat a meal and do the whole Seder before midnight. That was quite an undertaking. What time are the Siddharim likely to start on each of the 2 nights? So Shabbat, I don't remember the exact time, but it's approximately 8 o'clock. We will publish the exact times, but approximately 8 o'clock to start the Seder both nights. Candle lighting for the holiday. So candle lighting for Shabbat has to be done 18 minutes before sunset. Candle lighting on Saturday night and Sunday is done after nightfall, and you have to use an existing flame. So it's a very good idea for everyone to invest in 3-day candles. You can get them at Molly Stone's, you can get them online. 3-day candles. You have a candle burning, you can use that candle for your lighting, your Shabbat candles, and any other fire that you need in the house, because you're not allowed to strike a match on the holiday. Another question here. What was the custom of bringing the Omer in the time of the temple? So I can address that question. That question is already about after the first days of Pesach, at the first day of Pesach. It's about the second day of Pesach. Happy to address it. Anyone else have any other questions first about actually preparing for Pesach? Anything you want to ask about, anything about? Yes, go ahead, Linda.
Okay. So everything has to be prepared beforehand. And when you have your Seder meal, how are you keeping it warm that entire day for, all day Saturday for Saturday night?
You're allowed to cook and warm things on the holiday. So once Shabbat is over, you can put things in the oven. You can put things on the fire. So you have, what we do is the problem with the oven is you can't open the oven unless it's actually on. So that's complicated, and it's anyway.
Yeah.
But if you have an oven where that's if it's an electric oven. If it's a gas oven, you can open it. Okay. Depending on the pilot, it's complicated. But anyway, what we do is we have a fire burning on the fireplace or on the stove all the time.
Right.
We have a metal plate that goes over it so it spreads the heat. Mm-hmm. Right after Shabbat, you put the food on there and you do it. Another possibility is, if you want, you can use chafing dishes.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's say you have hot water that you heated up before Shabbat and let it boil, stay on the fire over Shabbat, so it's still hot. Mm-hmm. After Shabbat, you pour that in the chafing dishes. You light the chafing dishes from a pre-existing flame, and you heat it up that way. After Shabbat is over, you light the candles. You can cook things. You can heat things. It's not a problem.
So, okay. So if you have a warming plate that is electric and you keep it on.
Yeah, then you just put the stuff on the warming plate right after Shabbat.
Okay.
Someone asked about, the same question. Can you use an electric cooktop that is glass if it's left on, or a warming burner? Yes, you can do that on Yom Tov, yes. If it's left on before Shabbat.
Right.
Can't turn it on, but you can, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? There's also, they have these little candle burners that you heat things, but those, they won't really heat up the food in time.
No.
Rabbi,
way, yes.
Do you need a new hot plate for Pesach?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to kosher a hot plate. And if you're using a hot plate during the year, yes.
Let me ask you a question then. I mean, my daughter and I are having this argument.
if you can't kosher a hot plate, which is glass, how can I kosher my electric burners that the top is completely glass?
You can kosher glass,
No,
can't you?
no, it's very hard. There are some glass tops that the glass actually gets superheated.
Mm-hmm.
Glass tops are very, very complicated. The best thing to do is to heat them up to the top. Make sure they're completely clean. Heat them up all the way. Cover the rest of it with something, and then I don't know if it'll crack it though. Glass is complicated. You know what? By next Tuesday, Blinetta, I'll have an answer for you on what to do.
Okay, thank you.
It's very complicated. What I did for I have a cooktop, but it's not glass. But I ordered new handles.
Yeah, it's completely flat. It's like a hot plate.
Yeah, I know it.
Users.
I don't know.
Time to
I'm not
move.
Sure. I'm not sure it's complicated. I'm not sure. But I'll get an answer for you, Blinetta, by next week.
You mean
Is it
Is
it electric or induction?
No, it's electric. It's probably electric. The light goes underneath it. The heat goes underneath it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But induction uses magnet.
I'll ask my landlord. That's a good question.
So now I'm complicating it.
Induction wouldn't be better because it has to induction. It has to get hot. It has to get complete. It has to glow hot to be able to kosher it. All right, everybody. I want to thank you all. It's just about time. We're going to do next week. We're going to do a follow-up, and Bezrat Hashem, Sunday night we're going to do go a little bit deeper into the Haggadah. I want to wish everybody a happy Pesach. If you need any help, you need any supplies, we have a lot of things at Chabad, Kodesh Shadeka. Look us up at ChabadPaloAlto.com. And
yeah,
I'll meet you there, Kaylee.
Rabbi, we'll meet you at Molly Stone's, Rabbi. Janet and I coming to Molly Stone's.
Enjoy all your preparations. Take care.